If you have ever seen Wicked, you probably remember the quote: "Are people born wicked, or do they have wickedness thrust upon them?" For me, this raises another question: are people inherently bad, or are they doing bad things? As a psychology student, last term I did my internship in a juvenile detention center. Using what I learned there and in my legal psychology class, as well as doing some research and interviewing professionals, today I would like to talk about how we as a society are the main barrier for offenders' rehabilitation. I have to clarify that this is not about whether they can or want to change, it's about society not giving them the chance. Historically, prisons have evolved towards a rehabilitation approach, but people are still showing unforgiving attitudes. So it's an obstacle that prevents them from actually getting back in society. It is common for them to face social exclusion and prejudice. People see them as undeserving and therefore discriminate against them. They have negative bias. So if a problem arises, they just look at their criminal record and don't take into account any other factors. Sadly, even their families are affected by this since they are ostracized as well. Institutions are also a way where this can be reflected. So people released from prison tend to have a really hard time finding a job. Out of all stigmatized groups, they are the least hired. In Canada, 75% of released criminals have employment needs. And even when they do find a job, they are paid 10 to 30% less than their equals. It is important to mention that relationships are key. So having a positive family support will give them social ties, reentry, and supervision and accountability. But what can we do about it? Well, first of all, we need to change our negative perception and get involved. Community is one of the most important aspects for this. So when they are released, they have an identity transformation. And it is important to consider social learning, which means that they will adopt the habits of people around them. Now, imagine if they don't have a space for growth and acceptance. They will go back with their criminal peers. Also, they tend to face residential restrictions, which leads them to live in disadvantaged areas. Both of these situations are detrimental because they are not stimulating environments for them. Also, when they are discriminated against or punished, the results tend to be adverse. They encourage reoffense. The labeling theory states that when people are labeled as criminals, they tend to change their sense of self to fit that narrative, like a self-fulfilled prophecy. So if they expect to be rejected, even when showing positive changes, they're not going to abide by the law. It is very important to take employment into account, since having legitimate jobs, well paid, helps reduce recidivism. And well, people always have the need for money, whether it be because of debts, unemployment, or minimum wages. But if they don't have a legal way to earn it, they will turn to crime. Now, depending on your area, there are different programs, but one example is the Second Chance Act. Now, it was established in 2008, and ever since, it has lowered reincarceration rates by 23% and has encouraged states to get involved. So, for example, North Carolina wants to reduce people released to homelessness by 50%, and Nebraska wants to ensure that 90% of people released will have a job by their before the 30 days of parole placement. Now, these interventions are relatively recent, but they have already shown results. So, if we avoid discrimination and support these campaigns, the impact will be greater and the results will be faster, promoting a crime free life. Considering that stigma, low self esteem, and lack of trust lead to social and political withdrawal. It is understandable that those who maintain strong family ties while incarcerated are more likely to be successful when they are released. Now, community interventions are not only important for those people to face the challenges, but they also benefit the community. The government is in charge of their custody and treatment while in jail, but it is up to us to bring proper closure once they're out. So, to reiterate what I said previously, social factors can either encourage or discourage reoffending. So, it's important to be mindful and guide them towards the right path while also avoiding unfair treatments and stigma. Community based interventions can be helpful to reduce crime, to build community capacities to address legal problems, and they can bring rehabilitation and reintegration assistance. So I encourage you to research local programs and find a way to get involved, whether by donating, volunteering, signing petitions, or even just spreading the word. But most importantly, let's remember that they are humans, so we should treat them as such. Finally, the main takeaway of the movie Ratatouille is that anyone can cook. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone can cook, but that a great cook can come from anywhere. The same can be said for reinsertion. But first, we need to give them the chance. Thank you.